Welcome into No Punt Intended, presented by Club Fantasy. I'm your host, Joe Zollo, and for the first time in 3 weeks, I think, we're live. This is officially live today. Finally, schedules, worked out. I'm not traveling. Ryan's not doing things. Josh has a job again. So, we're all just trying to find time in this lovely world. And what we're here to do today is we're here to talk about ADP values and busts. We're going to go with the first 4 rounds. Some might argue the most pivotal. Some might argue those rounds don't matter at all because 9 times out of 10, you're going to find a good player up there. Unless that player's Alvin Kamara in 2021, then you want to gouge your eyeballs out. But you would ideally find somebody good here in these 4 rounds. But we're going to tell you who's got the best value and has the worst value of pretty much the running backs and receivers because there isn't much else up here in the first 4 rounds. Let's get into it. Welcome into No Punt Intended, presented by Club Fantasy. I am your host, Joe Zollo. We're live. It's about damn time.
Yeah,
Lizzo.
been a while.
Oh,
a minute.
I love
that.
that.
I like being able to interact with the comments. I've been trying to keep up with them.
I don't like interacting with you, so.
I love that Joe said he's not traveling and Ryan's not doing whatever. Like, I'm just some fucking weirdo who hasn't also been traveling just because I don't travel for work, Joe.
Sorry, not all of us can be employees of the Savannah Bananas.
Yeah, exactly.
I was in Richmond, Virginia for the Firefighters Headliner show. One of my ideas got used, not in that show specifically, but in the Party Animal show on Cloud9 when I saw that. That was really cool.
It's awesome, Joe.
Yeah, it's great. I fucking loved it. It was awesome. All right, here we go. Let's take care of some businessy things. Josh, you want to throw up our best friends at Underdog because we don't talk about them enough on our Look Inside show. So we're going to talk about them more on No Punt Intended. Promo code WOFF. Claim your free pick first time deposit offer up to $1,000 cash. And I guarantee a lot of these guys are going to be in your little parlays.
Yeah.
Because we have some of the best players here that we're going to talk about today. Make sure to like and subscribe. How close are we to 14, Josh? That's 1,400.
Last I checked, still at 1396.
All right. Well, find 4 friends, bug them, and tell them
you're
you're
not on this show. 4 of you are watching this show. Maybe not live, but 4 of you are watching this show. We routinely hit 4 views. Hit subscribe. Hey, come on.
Yeah, that would be great. We appreciate that. Just early on, we're over 20 people right now, so let's
some of you are on Twitter still.
Yeah, hop over to YouTube.
Don't worry, I dropped the YouTube link.
I know you do. I know you do. Before I get to the comments, that the first one obviously is already making fun of me because why would it be nice? What are our fans if they aren't mean to me and I'm not mean back?
Well, you did abandon her, so.
What?
You did abandon her.
She is a Stanley Cup champion.
Oh, that's right. She left first. I forgot all about that. And she hasn't been back. Congratulations, Emma. I was so happy when I found that out a few episodes ago.
She sent me a photo of her drinking from the Stanley Cup with former NHL player Sean Thornton.
That's awesome.
And I was like, okay.
I love that Joe lands almost a dream job and is still being vastly overshadowed.
I don't think you understand that. I don't think you understand that. I am working for the greatest show in sports, the hottest ticket, arguably on the in America at the very minimum. And I'm sitting there, 2 shows done. This is awesome. First firefighter show was great. Drink from the Stanley Cup. I'm like, can you let me have 1 win, please? Just let me have 1 win.
I wonder if Emma wants to host a fantasy football show. I feel like we picked the wrong one.
Okay. So. Anyways, one guy that we all hate, that isn't me, Aaron Rodgers.
I was like, where are we going with this?
I thought he was gonna pull up his dad's comment.
I was like, what?
No. He's helping me move this weekend. I can't be that mean to him. I'll still be mean. I can't be that mean to him.
Oh my God.
He's helping me move. Aaron Rodgers announces that it's likely his final season.
Thank God.
If there is a God, it will be his final season.
Yes.
Ideally, one that he doesn't complete. With all due respect. Ideally. So He is playing in New York week 1, right? I'm not that right.
I know he's playing the Jets. I'm not 100% sure if it's
because if it's in the same New York that he may or may not have popped that Achilles, who knows? Who knows? Better people
in New York.
Thank you. Better
At
people
East
have torn their Achilles, such as Tyrese Halliburton. So why can't Aaron Rodgers do it a second time, right? Just think about that. No, this says to be his last season. It should have been his last year because holy hell, this guy's fallen off a cliff. This is what a lot of people expected when Tom Brady turned 40, is that once you hit 40, there's just no way. Clearly, there's a way for the greatest of all time. Clearly not for this guy.
I think one thing this makes interesting, and I know we didn't love this guy coming out of the draft or even the combine, but you assume Aaron Rodgers is going to make them at least a mediocre team again, which means they're unlikely to replace quarterback. Will Howard might actually get a chance. So if he's out there in your Superflex leagues, Will Howard, guys.
Where'd he go to school, Ryan?
Ohio State
University.
The Ohio State University, who has produced how many good quarterbacks?
The zero.
The O?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. The block O.
The O in Ohio State stands for zero good quarterback. God, he's so bad. Go watch his combine highlights if you want to.
The combine is... If you go watch the combine highlights, you're going to stop watching this show. So I'll just apologize now.
Here's my favorite comedians in order. And I'll index Stroud. I reserve the right to say what Stroud is after year 3.
Joe is still waffling on CJ
I reserve
Stroud.
the right to say what Stroud is after year 3. Here's the funniest comedians or comedy shows you could watch. John Mulaney, anything that he has.
Amazing.
Shane Gillis, anything that he has. And then Will Howard's combine highlight tapes. Those are the 3 funniest comedy specials you could watch on YouTube or anywhere you could find all of that stuff. So we will get to some of these comments and questions first because, well, we haven't been able to do that.
Yeah, it's nice to see them again.
It is refreshing. Just a big middle finger to I get people to watch the show and it's not they're not nice.
No.
And I don't like that. It's very mean.
Emma took the temperature of the room really quickly. She understood what was going on.
Of course. This is a ode to me taking Christian McCaffrey in our work league last year.
Still made the playoffs though.
And still made the playoffs. I did make the playoffs. Now to lose, because this is a good one. I think we all have a different answer. I could be wrong on this. But number 1 overall, you're at 101. Who are you taking, Ryan?
It's Bijan Robinson, and it's a very quick pick for me. I don't even have to really debate. I am never a wide receiver early guy. It's just not how I build my drafts. I love Jahmyr Gibbs. I adore Bijan Robinson. It's Bijan Robinson.
Josh.
It's Bijan for me as well. Half
really
standard, full PPR. It's Bijan Robinson. I'm typically like, if I pick early in the drafts, I'm a lot more willing to play the hero RB strategy that we talked about in last week's episode. So I'll take that anchor RB and then just build out with my wide receivers.
I honestly thought we were all going to go in different directions. I'm also Bijan.
Oh,
I mean, we obviously all know I'm not taking.
I think the big differentiator happens at pick 2 for everybody.
Yeah, I agree with that. And
that's Chase for me.
I was gonna say, I know Josh is Chase.
That's where I thought you were going.
Yeah.
That's where I thought you were going, Josh, was you were going to go Chase. Yeah, see, Ryan, that's where I'm like, I don't know if I would go. If I'm 101, I feel more confident in Bijan. But at 2, if some like I like Gibbs, so yeah, I would agree with that. But again, obviously, big running back guy over here. So those would be we're all Bijan Robinson right now. Cesar, 106. Would you draft Judkins, Egbuka, or trade the pick for Breece Hall? Obviously, this is redraft, so.
I think this is Dynasty.
Guys, fucking obviously it's Dynasty.
Oh, I was like, I'm trading this pick for Breece Hall immediately. That is a proven commodity for the 106. I'm making that trade.
Breece Hall is going to have a much better season this year than a lot of people think.
A lot better than I think, but I would. A lot better than I think, but I would still trade for Breece Hall. Yeah,
we just saw in one of our dynasties Breece Hall get traded for what appeared to be peanuts, and even this still feels cheap. So,
yeah, I would. You're gonna take Breece Hall. I don't hate Judkins. I took him at the 106 in our league. But you're
if you can't make the trade, yeah, I'm taking Judkins there without a doubt.
easily.
And I love Emeka Egbuka. I just don't like waiting. So I guess it depends. If you're a contending team at 106, you're probably right in the middle. Judkins is going to push you into the playoffs this year. Emeka Egbuka is not. So
yeah, exactly.
Well, but also too, I mean, you don't trade for Breece Hall unless you feel like you can contend this year.
Yeah,
plain and simple. Like if you have the 106 because you stockpiled a bunch of
I agree with that.
And like I don't really care what Breece Hall's age is, but he's coming up on his second contract. That's not when you want to acquire running backs.
Yeah.
For rebuilding teams.
Yeah, let's be clear. You're not getting the 106 out of Breece Hall next year, even more than likely. He is a diminishing asset. You're doing this for the playoffs.
Correct.
He just turned 24.
Nah, age don't matter. Carries does.
But he had a year of, again, I don't know if this helps my case, but he had a year of injury. Like he wasn't being used. So if you're telling me, like, even if you're not going to be a hard contender this year, I still think he's worth it because 25, this guy has. Oh, okay. Well,
yeah, that changes. I mean, it doesn't change anything. It's Breece Hall without a doubt. So
yeah, I think I'm doing it either way because you're still getting Breece Hall at 25 next year. Yeah, and probably not a New York Jet, which is going to be best case scenario because he's going to go to a better team.
That's a good point too.
Yes, he's not going to be a New York Jet, which is why I do like this trade. Okay, how this is going to work. ADP values rounds 1 through 4. Rounds, we're going to work from bottom to top. So we're going to go 4, 3, 2, 1. Rounds 4, 3, and 2. We'll go through all of them. We're going to give you the best values and the worst values. Round 1, obviously, they're all pretty good values. So we're just going to give you who we don't like and feels just being drafted a teeny bit too high in that round, or potentially needs to slide into the beginning of the second round. Yeah. But we will start in the 4th, which is, I know, Ryan and I's personal favorite round, because that's normally where
we finally get to look at
you guys take your wide receiver 1.
That's where we find our wide receiver, and that's where our boy Keenan Allen lived for his whole career.
Yeah.
He got the disrespect in the 4th round, and he vindicated that with a wide receiver 3 season 2 years ago, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 years ago. Okay. So here we go. This is going from 4-1 to 4-12. Again, this is a 12-team PPR, half PPR, best ball. Again, that is just what we have to use our best stuff now. Obviously, these ADPs will very much change when it comes to redraft, but
let me just clarify what Joe's saying there. The ADP is best ball. We will be talking from a redraft.
Redraft, correct. So, yes, thank you. All right, starting off, first pick in the 4th round is Davante Adams. That is Los Angeles Ram Davante Adams. Mike Evans, James Cook, Jalen Hurts, DJ Moore, George Kittle, the 3rd tight end off the board. We'll get to 1 and 2 there in the 2nd round, I believe. George Kittle's the 4-6. 4-7 is Joe Burrow. Hello. Omarion Hampton, Xavier Worthy, Alvin Kamara, Kenneth Walker, and rounding out the 4th round is DK Metcalf, the somewhat newly acquired DK Metcalf for the Pittsburgh Steelers. So because we're always so negative on the show, and by negative I mean me, because I number one hater.
True that.
Let's start with the best values, because I do enjoy finding the best values in the draft. As we all know, I've been the sleeper person on this program for a while. And this is the value that I tend to find some of my receivers at. The guy I like to find for my wide receiver 1. But we're going to start with the backfield. And I'm a little surprised, Josh, that you put this guy on here because of his wavering health concerns. And he's obviously, when he's healthy, an extremely, extremely electric asset. But he does struggle with his health. And you do waffle on him. But Kenneth Walker is the guy that you have as the best value here. And if I could guarantee you 17 games of Kenneth Walker, he's not in the 4th round. There's no way.
No, 100%. I mean, and this really does. It boils down to health. I mean, he's not played a full season yet through 3 years. He only played 11 games last year. There obviously were some struggling moments in that Seattle offense. They definitely did not take to Ryan Grubb's system very well. But you bring in a new coordinator, Clint Kubiak, long history. Obviously, we know what his dad did. Gary Kubiak, the type of system that he ran. It's a direct extension from the Mike Shanahan, Kyle Shanahan way of running an offense, which means a lot of zone runs, one cut and go. If anybody has seen any film on Kenneth Walker, that is 1,000% how Kenneth Walker plays football.
Boom.
They've made some improvements to how they're going to run block. They spent a first-round pick on Gary Zabel, the interior lineman from, I believe, North Dakota State.
Get it right. Gray Zabel.
Gray Zabel, sorry.
Yeah.
I had the right letters. It just mispronounced.
You did. But Gary is Gray.
That is true.
If I'm lining up across from Gary,
my apologies to Gray Zabel and his followers.
If I'm lining up across from Gary, I'm not scared. If I'm lining up across from Gray,
that's fair.
Terrified.
But what I like here with Kubiak, and obviously we know the history of Kubiak and the Kubiak family and the Shanahan family, but Clint Kubiak specifically, the first time he was calling plays was in 2021 with Minnesota. Dalvin Cook went off that season. He had 16 rushing touchdowns.
It was the best season he's ever had.
Yeah. He also worked on the staff in San Francisco in Christian McCaffrey's first full season.
You know, the one where he scored touchdowns in 16 consecutive games.
21 total touchdowns, the overall RB1 cheat code.
Where it was impossible.
And then last year,
the end zone.
Yeah. And then last year had Alvin Kamara with the Saints, who finished top 6 in points per game.
Yeah.
So everything is pointing towards wheels up for Kenneth Walker. Like, I get it. You're getting him at an injury discount right here. That's the thing.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like to pretend that everybody's going to get hurt. It's the NFL. We know injuries are going to happen. Some people are going to play more games or less games. I get that. Everything for Kenneth Walker, he's a proven pass catcher. He catches over 80% of his targets. Kamara and CMC in their seasons in this system both saw over a 16% target share. Walker had 53 targets last year in 11 games.
Yeah.
He can catch the football. They threw just last year, the Seahawks threw the football over 100 times to their running back position. Both these guys can catch passes, but I feel like people just want Zach Charbonnet to be the lead guy because they're tired of seeing Kenneth Walker getting hurt.
That's exactly what it is.
Hey, yeah, exactly.
And Charbonnet is nowhere
because Walker's a better running back, plain and simple.
Yeah, nowhere near as talented.
Yeah. Kenneth Walker is the better running back. He
It's
breaks more tackles. It's all in all, this is the type of system.
More agile, breaks tackles, better hands, quicker.
It's two things at this point. We saw it's first the folks who, when Charbonnet got drafted, wanted to put the nail in Kenneth Walker's coffin. So now they have to keep hyping him up. And then we did see some really good games from Charbonnet while Walker missed time. So now everyone's like, well, that's why we want to see Charbonnet. It's like, well, it's easy to have a couple good games here or there. Walker has continued to produce in and out. So I'm with you on that one. I like Walker a lot.
I do just want to bring up the absolute fantasy demon that suspicion brings up. Arian Foster. Let's just reminisce
Played for Clint's dad. So
how good was Arian Foster at the?
And then the best part was that he was a waiver wire find. Like nobody knew Arian Foster was going to blow up.
He went undrafted, I believe.
Undrafted.
He was undrafted out of Tennessee. 6'1", 227 pounds. I don't think everyone realizes how big this man was. He had 1,600 rushing yards for 16 touchdowns. He averaged 101 yards per game in 2010.
All he did was take away Steve Slayton's opportunity. I was such a Steve Slayton guy.
Love Steve Slayton. But for 3 straight seasons,
and the other side, real quick, Joe, before
go.
The other side of this Ken Walker thing, do we really want Sam Darnold throwing the football?
Yeah.
Let's be real here.
For the comedy.
Well, but I'm saying, like,
for
as
ratings.
fantasy managers, we don't want him throwing the football. He had one good season. Nobody on this team is Justin Jefferson. And Clint Kubiak, for as good as he is running the football, he's not a quarterback whisperer like Kevin O'Connell is.
Marquez Valdez-Scantling would like a word with you, sir. Okay?
It's breakout year in year 12.
Does Justin Jefferson have the speed of a Marquez Valdez-Scantling? No. No, he does not. Does he have the hands of a Marquez Valdez-Scantling? No. No, he does not.
No,
there are very few wide receivers in the NFL. Maybe Dontavian Wicks has a case. for hands like Marquez Valdez-Scantling.
Yeah, there's not many.
I'm sorry. I just want to bring this because I want to make sure this is the guy I'm thinking of. Steven Sims is still in the league.
Hell yeah, my guy from Washington.
Yeah, he's a Seattle Seahawk.
I'm so happy. Well, now I know who their wide receiver one is.
It's Steven Sims and Jake Bobo. Those are the
Pretty sure I wrote a fucking Steven Sims article at one point.
Did.
I was so convinced.
You did. That's why I wanted to make sure that's the same Steven
Yeah.
Sims I was talking about. And before we go to Ryan's, there is an article, but Josh also talked about Alvin Kamara. If you want to see that, head to clubfantasyfl.com. But do know we do enjoy Alvin Kamara and Kenneth Walker here all as a show.
Yeah, the names of the chats were dropping were all really good names. I was like, yeah, we didn't pick any of those guys.
Yeah. And then best value, which I already knew Ryan was going here.
I didn't even choice.
I didn't even need to read the question. You could just told me here's round 4. Who's the best value? I would already told you this is who Ryan's picking because Ryan and I are the same person. And I have said repeatedly that DJ Moore is our new Keenan Allen because this is where this man lives. Talk about DJ Moore.
I got nothing to add. He's the new Keenan Allen. No,
straight up. I mean, that's what he is.
I want to talk about this from the standpoint of how Joe and I build teams because we do something very similar. Joe goes 3 running backs. I usually go 2 running backs into tight end. Round 4, as Josh pointed out, this is index. Come on.
I'll talk about that because I don't fully disagree, but it's more so the scheme. Continue.
But this is the round where Joe and I are looking for the sleeper wide receiver 1, and a lot of people are bought into Devontae Adams, and probably rightfully so. But when I look at this round, there is one guy I'm okay with being my fantasy wide receiver 1, and that is DJ Moore. And obviously there could be worries about the friction with the team, but when we have Ben Johnson coming over, DJ Moore is still a better receiver than Roma Dunze. This is a guy who's going to walk out with a 23 to 26% target share. He's going to catch most of the balls thrown his way. He's probably going to score 6 to 8 touchdowns this season. I think the world is lining up for DJ Moore to be a top 15, top 12 wide receiver. And that's exactly, if you're building your team with running back early, that's exactly what you're looking for. That's the payoff. And that's why in round 4, DJ Moore's my guy every single time.
Yeah, my biggest worry with DJ Moore is simply Luther Burden is a DJ Moore clone.
Yeah, and they got him for when DJ Moore
Ben
gets
Johnson's
traded.
Guy, so
they got him for when DJ Moore gets traded.
Yeah,
and I'm getting called out because anybody who watches this show knows I love Mike Evans. Age is still a thing, guys. Mike Evans is my favorite wide receiver 2 right now. He's my 5th round pick. If he falls, it's not going to happen. But I totally get what you're saying. I do adore Mike Evans, but I'm going to go with the guy who's 2 years younger, 3 years younger. So
working in DJ Moore into an Amon-Ra St. Brown role, please.
Let's hope so. And let's be clear, that's the brush I'm painting with as well.
And the biggest thing with DJ Moore's hindrance for me and his overall entire career, if you're not a DJ Moore fan, we just said this on the Falcon show we just recorded. If you're not a DJ Moore fan, just go watch the All 22 and just watch him. He's open on every play. He's open. Because there were so many times last year where Caleb wasn't even looking at him. And DJ Moore made there was a full 3 yards of separation between DJ Moore and a DB on a comeback route. Caleb was looking the opposite direction. Why? I don't know. Why wouldn't you look at your wide receiver 1? Same issue in Carolina. When his quarterback started realizing, a la Justin Fields, that he was open on every play, what happened? He had a pretty damn good season.
Yeah.
And we talked about this on the Falcons because we talk about Drake London and his high contested catch rate. DJ Moore's always open because he creates separation. Drake London's always open because he's going to catch it every fucking time he goes up and catches. Yeah. It's an 80-20 ball when Drake London is going
until they start building 6'4" corners. Drake London is open.
Yes. In suspicion, you do say if he was open, he'd be QB proof. That is not the case in the NFL. If he was, he's open.
You have to have a QB who's willing to make the throws.
So that's the other side of it. Yeah. And a lot of these young quarterbacks are not willing to make those throws.
And Caleb wants to hold the ball and wait for somebody to be open. With DJ Moore and that route I was talking about where he had that 3 yards of separation, He didn't have that separation until he hit the cut. And on a comeback route in the NFL,
The ball already needs to be out.
The ball needs to be out the moment that guy hits the cut. And by that time, literally, DB's 5 yards past DJ Moore because he hit the cut and came back. That's the issue, is I hope Caleb takes those steps, because if he doesn't, then there's a big issue with DJ Moore.
I'm going to interrupt for just a quick second. Our viewership numbers have shot up, but you're all over on Twitter. Click the link down below right now. Get over to YouTube, hit subscribe. We're trying to pick up 4 subscribers in this video. I guarantee of the 200 of you who are watching on Twitter right now, 4 of you ain't subscribed. Get your ass over to YouTube.
Get their ass, Ryan. Get them. Get them. Now we're going to talk about the worst effers in the 4th round. I don't want to dive too deep into this, but obviously Omarion Hampton should not be a 4th round draft pick, Josh.
No, he's going way too high. I mean, look, Najee Harris is not going anywhere. He's a former 1st round pick. He was signed in free agency. I understand it was only a 1-year deal, but it's for a maximum of $9 million. It wasn't the $5 million or whatever it is that, J.K. Dobbins or whomever signed for. They paid him pretty decent starter money. And for me, when you're looking at split backfields, one guy is going to run the ball, one guy is going to catch the ball. Here's the thing. Neither of these guys are going to catch the ball. The Chargers are bottom 3 in the NFL in targets to the running back position in a Greg Roman system. So you're basically splitting the same thing that makes the top 15 wide receiver, top 15 running back, yards and touchdowns. So if that gets split down the middle, Omarion Hampton's no better than RB 27, 28 probably. So I know this is a case of rookie fever. Please stop buying into Omarion Hampton. Yeah. Najee Harris probably needs to die on the field a la Tyrod Taylor, and that just it's not going to happen.
Fun fact, Najee has incentives in his contract starting at 1,050 rushing yards, $500,000, and then every 100 yards after that, $500,000. Once it hits 1,250, it's $1 million for every 100 yards after that. So
that's a lot of money. Josh, I don't think I've ever seen them agree with you so hard before. They are loving that take.
I have decent takes every once in a while.
Yeah,
that's a stretch. Jim Harbaugh is very much a player's coach. So if Najee Harris is even close to those numbers, who's getting the carries?
Yeah. That's the thing. I mean, even if Hampton ends up with 1,000 yards. How many touchdowns is he probably going to have with Najee Harris there?
6.
So I would say 6
or 7.
Yeah.
That's 136 fantasy points. That's not getting you top 12 numbers, top 15 numbers.
Yeah. Najee's going to get the bulk there. I completely agree. And then Ryan, you have, again, this is very based off of
that. This is a Ryan build.
Value. Jalen Hurts.
Yeah. And I could have picked on Joe Burrow. I could have picked on George Kittle. If you guys go back and watch our what show did we do where I was just going at this whole Kittle in the 4th round? Oh, it was the draft strategy show or whatever. Yeah, last week. The reason I went with Jalen Hurts is because in the 4th round, you're saying this guy's top 5 for sure. And I love Jalen Hurts. Do not get me wrong. And I think they're probably going to throw more this year. But even last year, he was only the QB8 because he did miss 2 games. And Jalen Hurts is like that guy you can always pencil in to miss at least 1 game, even if it's just because the Eagles have already clinched and he's not going to play the final week. Jalen Hurts is unlikely to be a top 5 fantasy quarterback next season. And I'm not paying a 4th round pick for that. And again, this is not to say I don't want Jalen Hurts on my fantasy team. I do. 2 rounds later, I'll start looking at him. But in round 4, I'm not taking any quarterback. And I'm certainly not going to take the one of these first 5 quarterbacks going off the board who didn't even finish in the top 5 last season. I'm not trying to say anything negative about Jalen Hurts. I spend most shows defending Jalen Hurts. He and Josh Allen give you something in the rushing game that no other quarterback does. From a week-to-week basis, I love Jalen Hurts. I can find way better use of my draft capital in the 4th round.
Real quick, Ryan, Jalen Hurts, QB5 points per game last year. Just saying. Even in a down year, he was still a top 5 quarterback, even missing 2 games.
Are you taking Jalen Hurts in the 4th round, Josh?
No, God, no.
That's the point.
Yeah. I mean, for me, when I'm drafting, I'm not looking at quarterback unless one of those top 4 guys make it to the 5th round. That's the only time I would even consider a quarterback. And I had to have not taken a tight end early because I'm only going one or the other. Because if you end up taking both quarterback and tight end early, you end up sacrificing way too much value at running back and wide receiver that you're
100%.
less likely to make up later in the draft.
Yep.
I agree.
All right, round 3. Here we go, starting with the first pick in the third, going to the bottom pick in the third. Garrett Wilson's the first one in the third round at wide receiver 12. T. Higgins, Chase Brown, Lamar Jackson, Jaxon Smith-Njigba. Running out the top half is Kyren Williams at 6. Number 7 is Tyreek Hill, Marvin Harrison Jr., Breece Hall, Rashee Rice, Terry McLaurin. Then his quarterback, Jaden Daniels, rounds out the end of the third round. Again, we will go best to worst here. And Josh, will start on your side of things. Rashee Rice, baby. Where'd he go to college? Just wondering.
SMU, baby.
SMU, wide receiver U. Go Stangs. Why you like Rashee Rice?
So it's kind of hard to ignore 29 targets in the first 3 games last year with Patrick Mahomes. He basically took over that Travis Kelce high volume underneath stretch the field role that Andy Reid has used very heavily in this system. I really think, and then you couple that by drafting Xavier Worthy in the first round. This is their new version of Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. Like Hill or Worthy's going to play that sort of Hill role, the speed guy that can get open, burned by everybody. Rashee Rice is the one that's going to carry the offense down the field. They still have Travis Kelce. I'm fully on board. This is probably going to be his swan song in the Patrick Mahomes revenge tour that is 2025, because everybody wrote him off, and obviously they got blown out in the Super Bowl. But Rashee Rice is a big part of this, and by all accounts, all the reports are saying that he is healthy and ready to go. So there is some benefit to those early season type knee injuries because they have that much more time to recover, where they can be ready for the early part of the season. Like, yes, that first month is still going to be a ramp up period. I'm not expecting 10 targets a game the same way that he was getting last year. But if you're working him in 6, 7 early, and then you're jumping August, October, November into that 9, 10, sometimes 11 or 12 targets a game, which can very easily happen because that running game is not good in Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes may throw the football 600.
Yeah, that's true.
And if you've got Rice, you've got Worthy, you've got Travis Kelce, that is a trio of quality pass catchers for the best quarterback in the NFL. So I don't for me, you could make the case that Rashee Rice could very easily be a top 12 wide receiver. I get that in the third round. Sign me up all day.
And I mentioned this before the show, and I didn't want to spend too much time on it, but I almost picked Rashee Rice as my worst value in this round. And it's nothing against what Josh said. It's exactly why he's in the third round, because Rashee Rice could easily put out the value of being a first round pick. Could also put out the value of being a 7, 8, 9, 10 round pick. Just I'm interested to see.
You think he could be that bad?
That.
Seriously?
I don't know about that.
I think this is
102 targets his rookie season, dude. You don't get worse than that.
And he went to SMU.
He's coming off a pretty bad injury. Matt Waldman over at Football Guys quotes a reliable source that said this is a very, very hard injury to come back from. So it's easy to look good in shorts. I'll be interested to hear how he progresses the rest of the summer. Zero chance I'm taking him at this early in the draft. I was shocked to see that. This is
what was his injury specifically? I thought it was just ACL.
I should know more than I do, but I don't. So I'll be honest.
Well, that's why I say if it's ACL, I mean, respectfully, it kind of feels like the ACL's not that. It's obviously a big deal.
I'm going to see if I can find the comment
his
real quick.
LCL.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not even his ACL. It's just
let me see if there's anything. So I'm just going to read Matt Waldman's comment real quick. This is publicly available on footballguys.com. Where they finished strong last season, and Patrick Mahomes has been vocal about revitalizing the vertical game. If Rashee Rice cannot return to full strength from his knee injury, Worthy could see more of Rice's role as an extension of the run game. His podcast partner, Brandon Angelo of Angelo's Analysis, is an athletic trainer to professional athletes. He has concerned about Kirk Cousins last spring, and those were rooted in based on his job knowledge. He has those same kind of concerns about Rice's ability to withstand the punishment of the game for this upcoming season.
All right, Lou, if you're still awake, chime in, our resident physical therapist here, on Rashee Rice's LCL injury there. What that might look like. Ryan, your darling that is never going anywhere. Kyren Williams in the 3rd round.
Yeah, pretty wild to get this touchdown upside in the 3rd round. All this guy does is score double-digit touchdowns, 14 of them last year. Passing game usage is still leaving a lot to be desired. That's just not how the Rams are choosing to use running backs. Still caught a ton of balls, 34 balls on 40 targets, catches everything thrown his way. They just refuse to use him like that. So in the 3rd round, I just feel like this is one of the few guys that could still potentially be the RB1 next season, and I can land him in the 3rd round just based off the touchdowns. Obviously, touchdowns come and they go, but it seems like Williams is pretty safe to find the end zone double-digit times.
Yeah, 31 total touchdowns the last.
Yeah,
year.
Josh. Yeah, you brought that setup.
Astronomical.
It's insane.
Production.
It's absolutely insane.
The only thing that really worries me with Kyren is the lack of pass game usage.
Yeah,
like it's just steadily gone down.
And then there's this weird drumbeat for Jarquez Hunter, but I'm like, they drafted Blake Corum last year and didn't use him. They're not.
Yeah, and that's kind of like it. All that talk about they need more explosive plays in this offense. They didn't have a lot of that, the big plays and things like that. And that's something that Jarquez Hunter excels at. Whereas Corum is basically Kyren Williams 2.0, right? They're very similar players and they just grind it out. It's nothing special or fancy. So, but part of me thinks that it's just the dynasty community that's just hyping him up.
Because it's a young running back.
And people are just tired of Kyren Williams because he's nothing special outside of a huge touchdown producer.
I was gonna say it's very true. There's nothing very special about Kyren Williams, but man,
and that's the thing. It's just like he just feels very easily replaceable, which is why like when I'm sitting in the 3rd round and I'm seeing his name, I'm always just kind of like, somebody else. Like, and again, it's very stupid because just look at the fucking numbers. He scores touchdowns. And that's what we need
this is just so ideal for me, who is likely going Bowers and McBride in the 2nd round of every draft. If I'm landing one of my favorite running backs in round 1 and then Williams in round 3, I'm a very happy guy. And then go grab me DJ Moore in round 4.
Would you love if he was your RB1 though?
Yeah, the touchdown upside. I'm gonna believe in the touchdown upside until he tells me not to. So yeah, I wouldn't be mad if I started the draft off wide receiver, and got Williams as my 1. I'd be cool with that.
I'd feel better about this. I feel better about Chase Brown as my RB1 than I would. Listen, we all know how big of a Chase Brown fan I am.
Yeah.
Okay, big Chase Brown.
Yeah, for me, it's the receiving volume. That Chase Brown is going to catch passes. Kyren Williams is not.
65 targets to Kieran's 40 last season. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, Chase Brown's never going to go over 100 yards either way, but he's going to find the end zone at least once and catch a lot of passes. So, worst values in round 3. They're all receivers, guys. Now, all of us agree that T. Higgins is a horrible value. We have
you're drafting him at a ceiling. I just want to put that out there.
Yeah,
like we've talked about this in previous episodes. You're drafting T. Higgins at his ceiling, assuming that Joe Burrow is once again going to throw for 40+ touchdowns. That's really what it is.
The reason we don't love Higgins is obviously, yes, that's ceiling marker, but he can't stay healthy.
Yeah.
We tell you all the time, if we could guarantee you 17 games of T. Higgins, I don't think any of us would really be worried.
And does that get better now that he has a deal?
No, of course not. No, it does not get better. No, it only gets worse. So that's the thing. But the other 2 guys, Jaxon Smith-Njigba, who, Josh, I know you've talked about a little bit, and then Ryan has Tyreek Hill. We'll start with JSN. Little elevator pitch on why you don't like him. I know you've talked about it a lot on previous shows too.
Yeah, Kubiak just runs way too much 12 personnel for me, and JSN really is not an outside receiver. Even when you go back to Ohio State, he typically ran out of the slot. And I know a lot of people kind of peg Justin Jefferson the same way when he came into the NFL because he ran mostly out of the slot at LSU, but he's translated to the outside. JSN has not translated to the outside. So when you put a guy that is going to run mainly 12 personnel, you went out and you signed Cooper Kupp, who, yes, does the majority of his damage from the slot, but is also used very frequently running outside. We saw Marquez Valdes-Scantling in this system do pretty well. He can be that deep threat running on the outside. He's not a slot receiver. So if they're running over 50% of their snaps, and their personnel out of only 2 wide receiver sets, when is JSN going to be on the field? let alone making a real impact. We talk about this all the time. Offensive coordinators rarely change their stripes. When you have the history of doing one thing, you're not just going to suddenly flip that script. So either they're going to misuse JSN as an outside receiver when he's going to be seeing a lot of man coverage and not the same kind of, off ball coverage that slot receivers typically see. You're setting yourself up for failure. And let's not sugarcoat the fact that Sam Darnold's still his quarterback, and Sam Darnold kind of sucks. Only once has he ever had a 1,000-yard receiver when he's played the majority of the season. That was last year with Justin Jefferson. In 2021, he had DJ Moore with the Panthers. Sam Darnold only played 11 games in that season. So he's never helped anyone get to 1,000 yards. And I'll continue to beat this drum. JSN was the wide receiver 9 in 2024. The wide receiver 20 in points per game. And you are drafting him over that this year.
Yeah.
It is a terrible value. Absolutely terrible.
Slinging Sammy Darnold is there now. It's like slinging Sammy.
And I was going to say, we could also just go back to the whole discussion about Kenneth Walker being the best value of round 4 because of how much, I think it was Index of Suspicion said you're going to forget there's air in the football. They're going to run it so much.
Literally. And then Ryan, you have Tyreek Hill, who has never seen the 3rd round over the last
you would think this would be
5 years.
A great value now. I just don't understand why we're all of a sudden giving the benefit of a doubt to 31-year-old wide receivers coming off their worst season. We all hope he's going to bounce back. We hope we're going to see better quarterback play. But that's a lot of hope at this point in the draft. He played all 17 games last season, was only targeted 123 times. I don't know what we can point at and be like, oh, that's what they were doing wrong and they're going to fix it. I don't see that with the Dolphins. And again, he's 31 and I believe actually turns 32 during this. No, never mind. He just turned 31. But regardless, he's not getting any younger. And I know we look at this guy as, the cheetah and all that. Age wins every time. And it tends to win against speed at some point. And Tyreek Hill has never really won doing a lot of technical things. He's won with his speed and running underneath and he hasn't missed a lot of games. And as he gets up there, you have to expect he's going to probably take the wrong hit. There's a lot of reasons to avoid Tyreek Hill, but none more so than I think he was the wide receiver 20 last year. And I don't see a huge leap that's going to make him better. Much to what Josh said about JSN from a points per game basis. Tyreek Hill was the wide receiver 20 overall. and I don't see that improving much.
Yeah, I mean, he was dealing with a nagging wrist injury, though. Like, it wasn't like, to me, that like if he was dealing with leg injuries, knee injuries, something like that, that would make me think that his speed was just going to evaporate. That's one thing, right? But he managed to fight through it and still play all 17 games. And he had to because Jalen Waddle missed a lot of time. We know how much time Tua missed between the concussion and the hip injury. Like, he fought through to finish as the wide receiver 20. His target share was way down, and I get that. And Joe and I talked about this on the Dolphins episode. Kyle Shanahan, this system that McDaniel comes from, they typically spread the football around. They have 4 targets that they go through: the 2 wide receivers, the running back, the tight end. You kind of you saw that come to fruition last year, but they took such a hit from a yards per play perspective last year because Waddle wasn't fully healthy. Tyreek wasn't fully healthy. He was dealing with the wrist injury, right? If you get all of these guys healthy, Tua included, they added beef on that offensive line to get bigger, to be able to protect Tua. And you keep that same, I'm going to distribute the football, which takes away some of that coverage and allows that speed to show itself in single coverage. That is when Tyreek Hill can be effective, even with a diminished target share, not seeing that 28, 29, 30% target share that he's seen the first 2 years in this system.
Yeah, it was, and again, a wrist injury doesn't move the needle for me because I'm like, did they just stop throwing it to him because they knew the wrist? Like, I don't know. Like, the target share thing worries me. I see your point a lot, and I think it was Steven George in the chat who brought up, if we see better Tua, we're going to see better Tyreek. I notoriously don't think we're going to see better Tua either. So that's I guess my problem with this offense in general.
Tua is a gust of wind away. I
like Devon Achane.
There we go.
Yeah.
because it doesn't matter who the quarterback is. Anybody can throw a 2-yard dump route to Devon Achane.
Yeah, and like I said, I'm not someone who's completely writing Tyreek off. As someone who is looking for my wide receiver 1 in the 4th round, if he falls around, I'm not mad at this anymore. But in the 3rd round, when I look at the options that are there for me, I always want someone who's not Tyreek Hill.
I mean, even when he was at his pinnacle, I would never trust Tyreek Hill as my wide receiver 1 because Josh, remember that stat you always used to bring up? About Tyreek Hill,
specific than that.
about Tyreek Hill, as a wide receiver 1. Do you remember that stat you always used to
the boom bust weeks?
What was that stat?
Yeah. Oh God, I don't fucking remember.
Half the time,
yeah,
he was a top 10 wide receiver in that week.
Yeah, there's definitely not a lot of consistency with Tyreek Hill. But
the
again,
other half,
he wasn't seeing near the volume in Kansas City that he was in Miami.
I agree with that, but the other half of the time, he wasn't even outside. He wasn't even top 24.
Yeah, I say he usually falls outside the top 30.
He was outside the top 36.
Yeah.
He wasn't even a flex play in traditional.
Well, and it goes back to what Joe says.
Games.
If a defense comes into a game and decides they want to take Tyreek Hill out, they can do so. It's not that hard.
No.
So.
It is cover 2 man and you press him at the line because this is all timing routes. Like it really is not hard to stop this Dolphins offense. It really is not. Round 2, baby. We're almost there, halfway through. Round 2. Again, starting with the first pick, going to the last pick of the round. Derrick Henry starts the 2nd round. He's the RB6. Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver 8. Devon Achane, Drake London, Brock Bowers, your first tight end off the board at the 2-5. A.J. Brown rounds out the top half of the 2nd at 2-6. Jonathan Taylor, Lad McConkey, Bucky Irving. I can't not say Lad McConkey like that. It's too good. 2 dogs right there. 2 second-year dogs right there. Almost back-to-back. Bucky Irving, Josh Jacobs, Trey McBride, your 2nd tight end off the board. And your first quarterback off the board who rounds out the 2nd round. 1, Mr. Joshua Steinfeld, also known as Josh Allen. Congratulations to him and Haley.
Yeah.
2 lucky people right there.
Yeah.
It's good for them. Good for them. They did just get married. I just saw that on Twitter, I think the other day. So that's cool. This is a pretty loaded round. If I'm
That's
not
what I was
going
to say. Yeah. And that actually just got brought up in the chat. This got brought up in the chat as well. It's like nobody feels bad here. Mine just makes a ton of sense. Like when we get to my worst value, but nobody feels bad here except for my tight end haters in the chat right now.
Yeah. Let's get this out of the way. I'm not taking a tight end early. If you told me you took Brock Bowers, fine. If you told me you took Trey McBride, fine. Like that you either take them in the 2nd round or you don't take a tight end at all.
So I was going to throw this out there. If the ADP had shook out differently, we had this conversation a few weeks ago, Josh. If McBride was in the 3rd round, I would have actually said Brock Bowers was the worst value in this round.
That's
because fair. I can go get McBride to do the exact same thing a round later.
I mean, he's 23rd overall. He's pretty damn close.
But that's not how we're playing this game. And so that's not how we're doing it. And so I refuse to hate on either of my buddies in this round. But if McBride had fallen 1 round deeper, that would have made an argument for Bowers to be the worst value in the 2nd round. So I get what these guys are saying. And me and Josh have been having this conversation.
Which is crazy because this is the most pro Brock Bowers
100%
show on planet Earth.
Yeah.
So okay, but best values we have right now. Josh, you're sticking with your favorite wide receiver 1 and your favorite team, AJ Brown.
Yeah, I just feel like I've talked too much about Brian Thomas Jr. and Devon Achane, to be quite honest. So I wanted to kind of go a different route here. But
I made some of those picks for this show too. Like I just already mentioned those guys. So.
Look, I've been on record, and I'll say it here before I get into my AJ Brown point. I have Brian Thomas Jr. as my overall wide receiver 2 heading into this season. I have Devon Achane as my overall RB2 heading into this season. And I have an article coming out on Monday about Devon Achane and why he should be a top 3 running back in fantasy football for 2025. But we're going to talk about AJ Brown here because, look, Jalen Hurts is not throwing for less than 3,000 yards this year. Okay. And I feel like this is just people are they're hyping up Saquon because he just ran for 2,000 yards, and rightfully so. Saquon is really fucking good at football. Jalen Hurts is also really good at football. A.J. Brown, also really good at football. There are a lot of really good weapons on this Philadelphia Eagles team. The last 2 seasons, Jalen Hurts has been over 3,700 passing yards. A.J. Brown has been over 1,400 receiving yards. He was on pace to finish. He had the same points per game as Brian Thomas Jr. last year. And Brian Thomas Jr. finished as the wide receiver 6. Why are we fading him? This is what I don't understand. Like, we're hyping up Nico Collins, who, again, was in a run-first offense last year. The same situation as A.J. Brown. Brown's just a better wide receiver. Like, let's figure this out, people. Like, Saquon Barkley, and I'll get to this a little bit later, 2,000-yard rushers regress. They don't get better. Okay, he's not going for another 2,000 yards.
I'm glad you just said that because I brought it up. I brought up the stats. Who are the most? Give me the most famous 2,000-yard rushers not named Saquon Barkley. Go.
Barry Sanders. And I literally wrote an article about this. Barry
Josh
Sanders
wrote this article.
He had the most rushing yards of the following season after a 2,000-yard season at 1,471. That was the best. Okay. So
he did that at 30 as well, which is insane.
Well, Saquon's 28 this year.
I know. I'm just saying he did that at Barry Sanders did it at 30, which is criminal. That was also not the first guy that came to my mind. But
CJ2K.
Chris Johnson.
I was going to say, look at Chris Johnson. He ended up, I think, with 13 or 11.
So
I thought it was 11.
This is the reason I'm helping your AJ Brown point by kind of knocking down Saquon here. So Chris Johnson at age, mind you, I'll give you the ages as well. This is Saquon going into 28. Mm-hmm. Chris Johnson at 24, 2,006 yards, 14 touchdowns. He had 18. I'm sorry. No, I was reading that wrong. It says first downs. He had 2 receiving touchdowns. I was like, no way he had 18 receiving touchdowns. At 25, 1364, 11 rushing touchdowns. Adrian Peterson, 2,097 yards at age 27, 12 touchdowns. Following year, missed 2 games, just under 1,300 yards, 10 touchdowns. That was at age 28. Yep. Eric Dickerson at 24, 2105 and 14 touchdowns. At 25, 1234 and 12 touchdowns.
I'm just going to save the viewership a click or go read Josh's article. He breaks all of this down in the article as well.
Literally broke it all down. It's on our website.
But it is so eerily similar that they all drop to almost that exact same spot and lose.
Now, don't get me wrong. Saquon has arguably the best offensive line of any of these former 2,000-yard rushers. So I'm not going to be the person that says that he can't, run for the 1,700 yards this year. Like, I'm not going to be that naive. But at the end of the day, regression is coming for Saquon Barkley.
Yep.
And he still has Jalen Hurts stealing 15 rushing touchdowns. Okay. So if he's going to lose all of those rushing yards, he's not picking them up receiving because Philly doesn't throw to the running backs because Jalen Hurts runs for 600 yards every season. So if he's not running for those yards, where's those yards going? They're going to the wide receiver position. They're going to A.J. Brown. The whole point of this is, if you like Nico Collins, just wait around and get A.J. Brown. It's the same fucking pick.
I love how the club fantasy story of the summer is Nico Collins versus A.J. Brown. This comes up so much.
There's a real world where Barry Sanders, if he had a decent offensive line, would have broken the rushing record in way less time than Emmitt Smith.
Well, Sanders came out afterwards. Sanders had this deep-rooted respect for Walter Payton and actually didn't want to break Walter Payton's record. He said,
because it was Emmitt didn't have the record. Yeah, it was Walter's at that time. My apologies.
Yeah, there were some quotes. Obviously, Barry had a lot going on with between him and the Lions, but he did actually make a comment that he wasn't sure he wanted to be the guy who broke that record. So.
And he easily could have.
Oh, 100%.
Oh my God.
I grew up a big Emmitt Smith guy. And I feel like when there are Emmitt Smith to Barry Sanders comps, Emmitt Smith gets mildly disrespected. Barry Sanders on the field did things that
one of the most electric runners ever.
But not for nothing, Emmitt Smith's consistency deserves a lot of respect.
Yeah. So Emmitt Smith was consistent. Barry Sanders was electric.
Yeah.
Walter Payton would run through you. in Jim Brown was all of that.
Yeah. Barry Sanders lost 3 yards or gained 6. Emmitt Smith gained 3 to 4 on every.
And you know what? For the early part of Saquon's career, that's exactly how he ran.
Yeah.
His rookie season was boom or bust, and that was the big comparison. Was he's playing like Barry Sanders? He's looking for the big play every single time. There was multiple all. It's
amazing what happens when you put a running back like that with a good offensive line. You get 2,000 yards
because you watch the all 22, and there would be a cutback lane, in between the right tackle and the right guard on an inside zone run. And he wouldn't hit it because he was looking for the big play.
Yep. He didn't think that those 3 yards were enough.
Yep. And he needed to just get that beaten out of him because it's a little different playing at Penn State than it is in the NFL. A little different also playing at Oregon than it is in the NFL because most Oregon running backs are absolute doggy doo-doo, but Bucky Irving seemed to figure out the formula, Ryan.
I'm just going on the fact here, running backs should get better in season 2. And last year, Rachaad White was more involved than certainly Josh would like to have seen, but I think that a lot of us, certainly a lot of Buccaneers fans would like to have seen, where there was way too much Rachaad White. And I think this season we're going to start seeing shifts of more of Rachaad White working its way towards Bucky Irving. Last year, 207 carries for Bucky, 144 Rachaad White. So if you want to keep Rachaad White involved in the passing game, at least slide 30 of those carries over. Rachaad White scored 3 rushing touchdowns. Bucky Irving scored 8. Maybe we see him get double-digit touchdowns. The long and short is Bucky Irving is very likely a bell cow back next year. And even last year, they split the passing work right down the middle. White scored all of the touchdowns. Regression tells me White's not going to find the end zone 6 times in the passing game again. I think we're going to see Bucky Irving maybe find some of those as well. I was very high. I went back recently and watched our way too early mock draft show. And I was singing Bucky Irving's praises back then and said that I thought he should be a 1st-round pick. And I'm kind of back on that boat. He stats out as my RB6 in PPR scoring. And I think this is a guy who we're going to see a better, more focused team this year, getting him the football versus keeping him evenly split with Rachaad White.
Steven asked the question, Breece Hall or Bucky Irving?
This season, I'm going Bucky for sure. Probably in Dynasty as well. I like Breece Hall, but I'll go Bucky Irving for sure.
Josh?
It's Breece for me. I have Hall at 7 and Bucky at 9. But at the end of the day, I can get both of them the way that this ADP shakes out.
Exactly.
We've talked about 4 rounds.
Yeah.
Breece Hall wasn't mentioned.
Nope. Breece Hall was mentioned last round. Round 3.
Where did I miss that?
Round 3 between Marvin Harrison Jr. and Rashee Rice.
So yeah, you still can get both. Yeah,
you can get both.
Especially if I play my hero wide receiver strategy.
Exactly.
That I did last week.
Personally, I would rather go Jonathan Taylor and then wait and get Breece Hall if we're looking to get 2 running backs back there. But
to me, I love JT. Don't get me wrong. I love JT. The issue is I have a lot more belief in the Buccaneers offense than I do the Indianapolis Colts offense. So
I don't disagree with that. One guy that Josh doesn't like at the running back position is Josh Jacobs. Actually, both guys that we don't like, according to you guys, both start with Josh in this round. The only 2 Joshes in this round we all hate.
Mine's not going to take a lot of analysis, but we'll start with Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, honestly, mine's not either, truthfully. You just look at Josh Jacobs' history. Every year that he has over 270 carries, he falls back down to earth. Every year that he's had over 270, he's had double-digit touchdowns. Following year, he craters. So I'll play the numeric game. I've done it before. I will do it again. You don't spend a 1st-round pick on a wide receiver if you don't plan to throw the football more. Plain and simple. That should tell you that the Packers want to kind of centralize their passing attack a little bit more. Jacobs is still going to get a lot of carries, but every time he comes off these high volume seasons, he suffers some kind of injury. So I'm fine fading him because, again, and I'll talk about it a little bit later with Saquon. These high volume guys, they always come back down to earth. They regress, plain and simple.
Yeah, 300 carries. And then what I found interesting, they got Emmanuel Wilson involved to the tune of 103 carries last year. Now they get Marshawn Lloyd, who they put a little draft capital in back, and maybe they want to start working him in as well. So
Josh is a slut for the numbers, guys. Let me tell you. Now this one's pretty.
I played it with Debo last year. It worked out okay. So
here's the thing. I'm okay with playing these numbers game because these are true hard stats that are very clearly trends.
Yeah.
I don't need no bullshit advanced analytics to tell me any of this stuff because at the end of the day, these stats are backing up what is shown on the field. Josh Jacobs doesn't do well after a high carry season and a high workload season. Honestly, most people don't, because after an NFL season, your body can't do it again.
Yeah.
It's rough.
They get beat up.
I know for Josh Jacobs in 2026 is more so what I'm getting at. Yeah. He's an even year guy, not an odd year guy.
Well, I mean, he'll be 28 then, but sure.
Okay.
Sure. Yeah, but we don't like Breece Hall at 25, but we're fine with Josh Jacobs at 28. Yeah.
Redraft, not dynasty.
Yeah, sure. Ryan, I know this one's not going to take long. Josh Allen.
I don't draft quarterbacks in the second round, plain and simple. If you do and you go into it with a plan, more power to you. But just like quickly glancing at last year's quarterback stats, Josh Allen in whatever fantasy data's default scoring is 22.3 points per game. Sam Darnold had 18 points per game. Justin Herbert had 16.8 per games. Patrick Mahomes, 17.7. Brock Purdy, 17.8. I can just wait on quarterback and get a guy who's maybe going to lose 3 to 5 points in an average week, but I get to load up on these stud running backs that I'm not going to have the chance at in a round, or, play the game at tight end and hope that I win the positional advantage war there. So to me, Josh Allen, I may look like an asshole at the end of the season. Josh Allen doesn't provide the positional advantage at quarterback for me to spend the kind of a second round pick on him when I can wait even just 3 rounds and get a guy like Joe Burrow. So,
well, let's not forget too, I'm pretty sure Josh Allen didn't play
there was that whole thing where he sat out the fourth quarter
or something like that. It was pretty
because
wild.
They were winning by so much. I'll just end round 2 by saying there are 2 guys I would break my RB strategy for, or at least my first 2 rounds RB. They're my guys, Drake London and Ladd McConkey.
Okay,
it's and I stand by that. I would break that mold for them, but at that point in time, I'm probably going to be sitting there with Drake London, Jonathan Taylor, and Ladd McConkey on the board, and I will take Jonathan Taylor. But if it ends up being Bucky Irving and Josh Jacobs and those 2 receivers, I might lean receiver in that instance because I'm not a big Bucky and obviously not a big Josh Jacobs guy. I wouldn't like them as my 2. I feel I get better value for running back in the 3rd round to be my RB2. So round 1, again, no best values here. These are all worst values. We're trying to tell you who to avoid in round 1 with where they're currently being taken. Again, this is not because we don't like these players. It is because they're being drafted too high. This is not an Anthony Richardson situation where we don't like the player and we don't like the draft value. Both of these players are very good that we're going to mention.
Yeah, I have multiple teams with both of the guys we're going to talk about, and I have multiple teams with every one of these first round picks on them. So.
Yes. Round 1. Your number 1 overall pick right now is Jamar Chase.
Yeah.
Pretty big. Bijan Robinson, first running back off the board, number 2 overall. Saquon Barkley, Justin Jefferson, Jahmyr Gibbs, CeeDee Lamb. Receiver, back, receiver, back.
Yeah. How the first round should be.
And I'm going to keep going. Receiver, Puka Nacua, back, Ashton Genty. Receiver, Malik Neighbors, back, Christian McCaffrey. Then you go receiver. But that's crazy. I haven't seen receiver back.
Yeah, it's not usually that back and forth.
I was going to say, it hasn't been like that for several years, I feel. And then rounding out is Amon-Ra St. Brown and Nico Collins at 11 and 12. So, worst values. We just talked about this with 2,000-yard rushers. This should not come as a surprise. Saquon Barkley at 3 is pretty high, Josh.
Yeah, he comes in actually stats out as my RB6 overall. And again, it just boils down to when you're taking away that many rushing yards, you're looking at 40, anywhere from, I'd say, 40 to 60 fantasy points that are just gone based on the yards that he's not rushing for because he's not making up for it in the passing game. Mm-hmm. And that's just assuming that the touchdowns stayed the same, and he scored 15 total touchdowns. So I'm not convinced that losing 60 fantasy points, even 40, hell, even 30 is worth the second overall at running back, right? The third overall pick in a draft. He was only 0.9 fantasy points per game better than Jahmyr Gibbs last year. Now, I understand he didn't play the last week, but that doesn't affect points per game. That's why I wanted to use that specific stat. 0.9 fantasy points per game. That's it. Like, he didn't even lap the field. Like, he wasn't some sort of positional advantage at the running back position, rushing for 2,000 yards. That just goes to show you the power of receiving work, especially in PPR leagues. That's the kind of running back that I want to invest in with my first round pick. Not the third overall pick where I don't get receiving work. That's really what it boils down to with Saquon. Love him as a player. I'm an Eagles fan. I root for him. I'm not taking him at third overall. Hell no.
In theory, we don't know what Ashton Genty's going to be.
Yeah.
But in theory, of all the veterans here, he's the only one that's not catching a lot of passes.
100%.
But even when you look at that Raiders offense, he has a clear path towards being a top 3 target on his
I was
team.
going to say 60, 70 targets for Ashton Genty is
Yeah,
very
that's
realistic.
what I'm saying. So, like, that's well within the realm of outcomes. We know the history of a Nick Sirianni offense. That's not in the realm of outcomes for Saquon Barkley.
Nope. So, yeah, of all the first-round picks, you could argue that he's the least valuable in a PPR setting.
Correct.
Which is crazy to say after the season he just had.
Well, and especially knowing Saquon's history catching the football. He's a very talented pass catcher. It's just not their offense.
Agreed. Now, to the age-old, apparently, club fantasy hatred now. It's not even hatred because we do like Nico Collins. Like, we like Nico Collins as a player and as a receiver. Just in the first round, it doesn't feel like it makes sense.
I was going to say, and calling the 12th pick of the first round the worst value doesn't make a ton of sense. I'm not going to sit here and shit talk Nico, though someone did bring up in the comments that Stroud is still dealing with that shoulder injury, which could affect Nico, but this has nothing to do with Nico to me. This has everything to do with the guys who I can get in the next round and maybe even 1 or 2 in the third round. But Brian Thomas Jr., Drake London, AJ Brown are all second-round picks, and Nico Collins is a first-round pick. And then, like, Garrett Wilson, T. Higgins, like, those are the guys who I would be comparing Nico to for the most part, but they're available in the third round. And so that's what just makes this pick in the first round unfathomable to me. There's very few times other than best ball differentiation builds where I'm taking Nico Collins in the first round, and I would need to have the 12th pick. And me being me, I still would have waited and made him the second pick of the first pick of the second round and taken somebody else just to fuck his ADP up. That's just who I am as a person. And so it just doesn't feel like the right pick. If I'm looking at these 12 and being like, who am I going to be disappointed by? I agree with Josh. Saquon Barkley, in the grand scheme of things, you're going to be disappointed. And then Nico Collins.
Yeah, and we talked about this in our Falcons recording that's coming out a little bit after a week or two after this. Nico Collins and Drake London are literally in the exact same position in the exact same offensive scheme.
And I can go on a full round later.
Exactly. Like, why spend that first round pick on Nico when you can get Drake London in the second? Why spend that first round pick on Nico when you can get AJ Brown, who has a better history of production? It just, like, this is all about values. Nico right now, to me, is just not a value. We're putting some weird level of expectation on him that he truly has not ever hit. But because we like him and we want to root for him, he's suddenly a first round pick. And it just, I don't get it. Especially because he never stays healthy. Let's not forget that.
Yeah.
Just so you guys know that we do practice what we preach, and we do not tell you anything differently and go do something on our own. I'm bringing up, and we're going to end this with the first 4 rounds for each of our teams in the mock draft we just did last week. If you didn't watch last week's show, kind of a breakdown of each team and all this stuff, go ahead and go watch that back on the YouTube page. because for all of you over on Twitter, you can head over there, make sure to like and subscribe. But Josh, when here a receiver, CeeDee Lamb, Devon Achane, Breece Hall, James Cook. I mean, that's textbook exactly what he just talked about and told you.
Yep.
And what happened, Josh? You took a quarterback, but why? Because Jaden Daniels fell to the 5th round.
Exactly.
It's exactly what happened. And that was out of the 3rd spot in a 10-team league. I was in the 5th spot in the 10-team league. I went Jahmyr Gibbs, Christian McCaffrey, Kyren Williams. My usual 1, 2, 3 at back, and then DJ Moore. I do exactly what I tell you guys every single week. And then, Ryan, you were out of the 8th spot. You went Genty, Trey McBride, because Brock Bowers was taken.
Yep.
Chase Brown, Terry McLaurin. Ryan and I both drafted quarterbacks. Ryan, you took yours, Mahomes, in the 11th round. That just feels like you should take him there.
Yeah.
And I took Justin Herbert in the 14th. When we tell you, we practice what we preach to you guys.
It's how we draft these teams.
It's how we draft these teams. Ryan did not take a backup tight end. I took Kelsey in the 8th because I just felt it was a steal. Josh waited on Tucker Kraft until the 11th.
After we had just done an episode talking about how great a value Tucker Kraft is.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's why, like, when we tell you these things on these shows, like, we don't reach, we don't try and mess with anything. This is exactly how we walk into everything. So what we're talking about truly takes shape and form in what we just talked about.
I mean,
last week.
not that we need to get this deep, but I said I get into the fantasy. I'm doing this research for my own leagues. Why don't I just share it with you guys? That's how I play this game. So
I just watch and hope I'm right. I just watch and hope I'm right.
Yeah. And he doesn't put anything on paper, so you can't prove if he was wrong.
No. I know when I'm right. I don't need people to know when
nobody
I'm wrong.
needs to know when he's wrong.
Yeah, come on now.
Love it.
I'm pretty damn good. Listen, I'm
You are.
pretty good at being right. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I'm pretty even keel, especially on the IDP front.
Indeed.
So, gentlemen, that's all she wrote.
We did it.
That is ADP values, rounds 1 through 4. Again, some might argue the most important. Some might argue the least important.
Yeah.
Because, well, you better hope there's a hit in your first 4 rounds, because if not, you're probably not playing for much at the end of the day, and you just donated $20 to $200 to your league mates and whoever the winner ends up being.
Yeah.
End it with Millie's question.
That's exactly
Is he wrong
how
for
I would
having
do it.
Henry in the back of the first over Nico? No.
I mean, and Henry is the 13th by ADP. That's exactly how I would. I mean, that's not exactly how I would do it because I take Bucky Irving there. But
I mean, they're the string
I was about
picks.
to say. I mean, I have BTJ and Devon Achane higher, so I personally would take one of them instead of Henry, but both of them over Nico for sure.
I'm fine with Henry. He's not.
I mean, if
normally-
Henry's who you want, like, look, at the end of the day, Henry has defied everything. You ride him until the wheels
died.
fall off.
that's exactly what I said.
Like, I'm tired of doubting Derrick Henry. I really am. Like, every single year I do my projections, he always comes in at like RB 13 because he just doesn't catch passes. And I think when I did my projections this year, he came in at RB 8. That's probably the highest that I've ever had Derrick Henry pre-draft. So that tells me this is probably the year that he falls off, because that would be my luck. The one year that I believe that he'll be a top 10 back is the year that he's not. But
He's
it's hard to argue. You put a running back of that caliber
on the
with
best rushing
quarterback
offense in the league.
that can run the way that Lamar Jackson can run. Defenses don't know who to stop. Plain and simple. Derrick Henry had over 6 yards per carry last year. There's no reason he can't do it again. None.
It's insane. It's crazy. Yeah, I'm never a guy that's gonna have Derrick Henry on my roster, but if you told me you drafted him in that spot, I'm not mad about
I'm
it.
good with it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not mad about it. Next week, ADP's rounds 5 of 8 for the drafts. Again, same exact thing that we're doing here.
This
but
is
we're
where we
doing
start
more.
fighting.
Yes. 100%.
Well, especially with my draft strategy.
Yeah,
This
exactly.
is-
We'll probably be talking about a few tight ends.
Yeah, exactly.
in
Yeah.
next episode.
My worst value
end.
is every tight end.
every tight end that is in rounds 5 to 8. Horrible. You don't want them. Trust us, you don't want them. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to check out some articles, you can check them out on clubfantasyffl.com. You can follow us at Club Fantasy FFL, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Subscribe to the damn YouTube. I hope 4 of you did tonight. I hope so. No?
Slackers.
Bitches. All right. Well, go tell your friends. Let them know that we're funny.
Yeah. And we answer every question. You
Every
leave a question, it gets answered.
Yeah.
And also, real quick, I want to throw this out. Make sure you're following Women of Fantasy Football on Twitter, women_FF. We're doing a really cool tournament. It's our Gods and Goddesses of Fantasy Football tournament. Sign up. You'll have an opportunity to play against some of the industry's biggest
Lots
Gods
of
and
cool
Goddesses,
names.
hence the name. A lot of great names: Stefania Bell, Lindsay Rhodes, Kendall Valenzuela, Howard Bender, Bob Harris, Andy Behrens, many others that I'm probably not getting to right now, but that's fine. Go check us out. Sign up.
Yeah.
Registration is up there.
As of this morning, 40 spots left. So make sure you guys get in there as quickly as possible.
It's going to be a lot of fun.
Boom. That's all she wrote, everybody. For Ryan, myself, and Josh, you can follow Club Fantasy on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. The URL, once again, clubfantasyffl.com. Always remember, defense wins championships. Offense wins fantasy football. We will see you next week.